Hello guys, and welcome to the second lesson of the week number 1. I would like to start this by reading you a poem. This was translated from Babylonian, Assyrian, and Egyptian poetry, which is quite old, and it is from the 1900 before Christ, and it's anonymous. We don't have an author that was recognized by this. I think it's pretty interesting, especially by what we're living today with this disease and plague virus that we are suffering. Uh, I don't know, it's a different way to experience death, right? It is called Death is Before Me Today. Death is before me today, like health to the sick, like leaving the bedroom after sickness. Death is before me today, like the odor of myrrh, like sitting under a cloth on a day of wind. Death is before me today, like the odor of lotus, like sitting down on the shore of drunkenness. Death is before me today, like the end of the rain, like a man's homecoming after the wars abroad. Death is before me today, like the sky when it clears, like a man's wish to see home after numberless years of captivity. It's a beautiful text. Probably take a look at it and use it. This is from War Poetry, a book full of really interesting poems. By the way, you can also have like some different options to read. Remember what I mentioned before. So if any of you is interested about those, I can share with you some material. Of course, right now in a digital way, and that will be fine. Okay, guys. So we're going to start with the slide number 8, that is going to talk about the communicative repertoire. Okay, so what is a repertoire for you? What do you think about that? When somebody tells you about that repertorio, what do you think about? Yeah. Most likely people can think, for example, about a repertoire of songs. If you're a musician, and normally you have the possibility of have trained and practice some of these songs in order to play them in front of an audience or something like that. Or maybe you can think about a repertoire of jokes or different things, right? So think about a repertoire of these books, this box. I'm sorry, box of instruments, box of tools, by means which you can, by which means you can sort of do something, right? Now, if we're talking about communication, right, is what are the instruments or the tools or let's say the components that you can use in order to communicate better or to communicate with somebody, right? So let's take a look at this list that we have over here. The first one is one or more languages. That is the basic one. In order to communicate, we require to know a language in a formal way, like the ones that we study in an academy, or we study in the school, university, we perfect that, etc. Or in the informal way of day-to-day communication, right? So many people, and I bet that many of you like have that experience, that you got to know the concept, the real concept of adjective or noun or verb or syntagma or any of those by the time that you were studying a second language. Many people are not aware of that. They don't really think about it, but they are able to use that. So that is one of the tools that we have, definitely the base one, the language that we use. Then from that language, English, Spanish, French, German, sign language, yes, we have like different language options, right? So we are able to produce or to reach communication by means of using phonics, yes, and everything related to auditory possibilities and words and speech and conversation. But we also have graphic means, yes, such as drawings, such as illustrations. We tend to forget that, but remember that an alphabet is a set of illustrations themselves. Yes, it's a set of drawings that somehow represent a sound, and that put together represent a word, and that put together represent phrases and ideas, and etc. Right? So we have graphics in different levels and lexical in terms of writing, in terms of vocabulary, in terms of different things. Okay. Then our choices in our communicative repertoire may be conscious or unconscious. So we can uh, be aware and decide calmly and deliberately uh, what we are going to say, how we are going to say it, what is the tone that we're going to use, what is the vocabulary, the if it is serious, if it is going to be aggressive, if it's going to be uh, very formal. Yeah, all these different things they can be conscious, but then there are some choices that are unconscious, right? So sometimes we use words or attitudes or body language that mm, are already programmed, if we can say so, because of the habit, because of our environment, our context, and we are affected involuntarily somehow by them. Yeah. So just imagine that somebody asks you a question and you just make a pause and said something like, uh, and then a silence. So are you really aware? You're really sure of what you're going to say? Not really. You have already transmitted that you're doubtful, that probably you don't know the meaning of that, or you don't know the answer to that question. Or what about if somebody asks you something and you say like, okay, and then you start answering. So probably you were annoyed by the question. It was asked too many times. You already repeated in the past, so you are not really willing to answer the question because you don't like the person. Well, I don't know. But there are certain choices in our communicative repertoire that may be conscious or unconscious. Yes, either we decide to transmit a message, or there are certain things that at a conscious level just happen, right? And then we have the context, right? So all these different things related to the situation, the purpose, and the destinatory, right? So how are we going to alter our discourse if there is a different person? We already made created an exercise before, explaining something to a friend, explaining something to your mom. What if you have to do the same, but with your teacher, or with your boss, or with the president, or I don't know, different people? So the discourse is going to change. It's going to adapt to the context. Same if you're going to create an explanation, as I mentioned before, to explain something to your mom, or you're going to explain something the same, like installing WhatsApp, but that is for homework, sorry, for the university or for some academic context, right? So the situation, the purpose, and the destinatory are going to alter and change a lot these different things. Now, discourse is a complex thing, and it is heterogeneous, but it's not chaotic, right? So it's difficult. It is employed differently in different ways. We're supposed to have like different levels of discourse depending of our context, but it's not chaotic. Yes, even though it seems to have all these combinations of possibilities, we are going to have also the chance to maintain, if we want, and we have been trained to, and we are educated to, a certain amount of order, and it's not simple mess and chaos, right? Now, it is complex because it has different ways of organization. We already mentioned how formal English that we learn in classroom is different from the ones that we listen in day-to-day life, and different from the English that we listen to in songs, and different to the English that we listen in rap, and different to the English that we listen in movies and the slang and all these different things. And in different countries, English may be different, such as Jamaica or Australia or Native American people that use English combined to some of their ancestral languages. Well, those are just examples, but there are very complex and complicated ways to organize a language, right? Now it also has cultural and historical implications. For the ones taking literature with me, hopefully we're going to see how all these historical events, such as invasions, wars, domination, discrimination, trips, well, a lot of different things has to do with the development of a language and the way that it is spoken currently. So it is complex, yes, because sometimes, and I explained that as well in that subject, sometimes we think that a language is pure or original, and there is really probably none of them that can be considered that way. Then we have manifestations of language, right? This makes the language complex. So we can have orality in all the different variations of orality. Yes, the slang, formal, everything that we have just mentioned, and then we have the same manifestations in the written language or in the written modality. And then we have the word verbal iconic, right? That's another manifestation. Now, what is verbal iconic? Dot a moment. What is verbal and what is iconic? Yes. So, well, normally verbal we associate it with the speaking part, right? The ability of doing it aloud. But actually, it has to do. We will see later on that verbal can also be interpreted as written language. It has some characteristics and some possibilities, but it also can be written. So basically, the verbal iconic is a combination of either the oral or written language with the iconic language. Now, what is an icon? Yeah. So where do you find icons? Do you find icons in your cell phone? Yes. So for WhatsApp, there is an icon that is some sort of a bubble, that it's green and it has a font. That is an icon. Yes. Or Facebook has a square that is blue and it has an F in the middle, right? That is another icon. So it's a representation of something. Yes, that it's normally graphic. Yes, that it's normally in the most traditional sense of the word, an illustration or a drawing. Yeah, it represents something. Yeah, it has also been said, for example, that a person can be an icon. Yes, so I don't know, Madonna is an icon for pop. Yes, or Michael Jackson was an icon for pop. Or some people who are really important in a certain aspect or field are normally considered icons. Yes, because what? They are representations, right? Their life, their behavior, their abilities, their skills, what they do represent a whole group of people. Yes, so that can be an icon. But as I mentioned before, well, in the more traditional sense of the word, an icon can be reduced to a drawing. Yes. So how can be a combination between words and drawings? Well, you can think about comic books maybe. So that may be a sort of a verbal iconic language. But there are some other things that are a little more simplistic, right? So I don't know if you have you ever seen this? Oops, this one. So what do you see? Yes. It says ojo, yes, like eye in Spanish. Normally I used to have to find this a long time ago when people sold products in their houses. Yes, maybe ice cream, or they had a hardware store where they sold like paper or pencils or something like that, cacharreria. So they used to have this because they didn't have like signs. They didn't have the money to invest for a big sign. So they just put a piece of paper and put it over there in the window or something like that. And it says, ojo, helados, ojo, cacharrería, ojo, promoción 3x1, etc. Right? So as you can see, it's a combination between letters, the O, the J, and the O. But at the same time, they sort of represent the eyes and the nose, right? So it's a combination between verbal letters, O, J, O, and also the drawing that is telling you, hey, attention, there's something to see over here, right? For example, you can see something like this, yes? So you can see a drawing like that. Normally, what does it contain? The bottle. What is it, right? So some people may say poison. Well, that's a possibility. Some other people may say that it has alcohol. Yes, that this is vodka or aguardiente or something like that. And as you can see, it's a combination between the bottle, the cork over here, and then the letter X. Yeah. So nobody. I mean, there's nothing over here that doesn't that even has like the initial of the word alcohol or vodka or whatever. Nevertheless, you understand that this is about alcohol, right? And the label has over there a famous name of whiskey or whatever, right? So these are the verbal iconic language. So this complicates the language somehow, because it doesn't have a single interpretation, but you have to be aware of all the different ones, right? So it is complex because of that. It is heterogeneous but not chaotic. So what does it mean? It is different, but it's not completely chaotic or out of control normally. Yes. So it is regulated by textual and sociocultural rules and principles beyond grammar. What does it mean? It means that sure, let's say that the first thing that you may think of in terms of control for a language may be the grammar, right? Like what to use, the verbal tenses, what to use in order to do an affirmative sentence or to ask a question or to negate something, right? So that may be a way of control somehow, of controlling this chaos of language. But that's not the only one, right? You may be an expert on grammar, but maybe a terrible communicator when promoting a product, for example. Yes, when trying to sell that to a person. Yeah. Or you may be an expert in grammar, but be terrible at communicating with people and being rude and being, I don't know, annoying or, well, different ways. Yes. So there are some rules beyond grammar that apply to this. Yes. So communication is also regulated by what to say to certain people, the tone, the body language expressed, the level of formality or informality, etc. Right? And it means that language and discourse in this particular case adapts to each communicative occasion. Yes? Same thing. If you're going to tell a story, or you're going to ask for a favor, or you're going to communicate a complaint, it might be completely different if you do it directly to the representative of the university or the government than you say to your friend. Yes? You would say something, oh, come on, I'm really tired of this shit, right? So you adapt. Same situation, yes, same exact, let's say, communicative intention. Nevertheless, the way you communicate it, the way you adapt your discourse, is different, right? So heterogeneous, you see, but not chaotic, because there's a rule for that. Hopefully, yep. Hopefully you wouldn't say or express it in the same way using rude words to a different person, right? Then we have another variable in here that is that it is mediated by the interpretation of intention intention, expressed verbally and non-verbally, explicitly and in a veiled way. And this is, if you ask me, probably one of the most important things in order to understand this course, or the most important implications, at least. Yes, and is that sometimes, even when you try, you are responsible only for what you say, not for what other people understand. You're responsible for what you say, but not for what other people understand. Of course, there are certain ways to minimize these misunderstandings, but it's a difficult thing, right? So this course is complex because you usually want to say something, but it's not 100% guaranteed that your receptor or your destinatary is going to receive the exact same message. Yes, in between that process, there is a process of interpretation, of prejudice, of previous experience, of a lot of different elements that are going to twist a little bit your message. That's like the word, if you allow me to use that word. And it may be explicitly or in a veiled way. Yes, so you can actually be very explicit about what you say. Yeah. Or communicate it in a less explicit way, in a veiled way, in a way in which the message is not so clear, it is a little bit ambiguous, right? So you can say something, to a question like, so how was the evaluation? You can say, well, it was terrible, really bad, right? And that will be explicit. But then to the same question, hey, so how was the evaluation? You can answer, well, it is some sort of veiled somehow, but the person gets the message. He doesn't get the details. He doesn't know if it was too difficult, if he couldn't finish that in the right amount of time. He doesn't know if maybe he didn't study, but he gets the message, right? And it's that it wasn't good, right? So those are the complexities of the language in terms of being heterogeneous but not chaotic. Finally, we can say that there are different aspects that mediate discourse, but one of the most important one is the power. Yes, so heterogeneous discourses are mediated by power and solidarity relationships. Yes, so we're mediated by relationships of domination and resistance. So when we communicate, for example, with a government entity or with a hospital, when they don't want to give us the medicine that we require or the attention that we need to, so there is a dominant, a part that dominates, and the other one that resists, and there is a discursive implication over there, right? These relationships are mediated by the way they communicate to each other. Equality and inequality, identity and difference, right? All these relationships of power mediate the discourses. So there's an interesting discussion, if we can call it that way, about the importance of language in a male and female equality. Yes, and that actually has better implications in Spanish, right? Because you know that in general terms, English is a neuter language in terms of gender. Yes, so we say they, and we don't need to say ellos, ellas, or ellas, or todes, right? We don't have that problem with English, at least not in that particular word. But then discourse is mediated that way, and that is a very real, I'm going to call it issue. Doesn't mean that it is bad. Yeah, there is a real issue because there are different wheels of power, let's say, somehow fighting each other or impacting each other in terms of this. And the same for identity and difference, right? Like the discourse can affect the way we perceive ourselves and the way that we project ourselves to other, right? That's why. Okay, so that is the end of our of this part of the lesson. We are going to discuss in the next video the units of discourse analysis that are really, really important. Okay, so hopefully we will finish with that, the content of this week, the week number 1, and with the second assignment that we will have based on that. So see you soon in the next video.